Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? It's your man, Big B, Brien Hanley. Welcome back to the Big 12 Insiders. Appreciate everybody being in here. Football is right around the corner, and today we are talking Oklahoma State with our guy, McLean Bakesley, who covers the Oklahoma State Cowboys for 24/7. McLean, how are you doing today?
Doing well.
Thank you, man. Football is here, and I'm excited. I did just all the rumor mill and everything and that goes into the offseason. It is what it is, and we are past that, and kickoff is right around the corner. So speaking of that, as far as the Cowboys are concerned, let's just kind of dive in here. I mean, Oklahoma State had wholesale changes basically everywhere, McLean, from players to coaching staff. Is this kind of a change of direction for the Cowboys in a sense? I mean, a lot of times when you see a cleaning of the house, it's usually the head coach goes with it. But Mike Gundy, I think, has kind of earned, some cachet when it comes to that kind of stuff. But this is kind of a change of direction that Mike Gundy's changing direction of the program, or is this him just saying, I just needed to clean house. We just needed to start over?
I think it's more to start over. I think, as you said, Mike Gundy is still in charge. It's still his program. He still has, final say. He's a coach that, for the past decade or so, he's kind of been a guy that he's going to find the assistant coaches, find the coordinators, and then let them coach the positions. He's kind of, uses the coaches as a middleman between himself and the players. And I don't think that's going to change this season, even though there are, 50 plus new players here in Stillwater. So I think more of a starting over, getting two new coordinators in, two guys that he's familiar with, especially Doug Meacham at offensive coordinator, and just kind of restarting a fresh slate. Like you said, there's a lot of new players, a lot of new coaches. And I think after the season they had last year, that's only a good thing. Things did not work really at all in the last 9 games of the season last year. So really just starting over fresh while still having Mike Gundy and his way of doing things, the discipline, attitude, toughness mantra that's really, led to a lot of wins and a lot of success in Stillwater for the past, 20 or so years. That still remains, but I think how they do things might be a little different this year.
Gotcha. And I guess that maybe eases, Cowboys fans' minds a little bit that Mike Gundy's still in charge. Because, I mean, you know how the rumor mill goes. There was rumors that, well, he's just there as a figurehead and somebody else is doing this, calling the shots, yada, yada, yada. First of all, my thing is Mike Gundy's his own man, and I don't think that he would be somebody that would just be the figurehead of a program and not in charge. That's just me outside looking in. I don't think he's a guy that would do that. Having said all of that, 2024 didn't go the way that anybody thinks. Mike Gundy's been extremely successful, not very successful, extremely successful at Oklahoma State. Does he and fans and the program in general just think, hey, man, that's just a hiccup and just a blip on the radar to get back to what fans and he and the program is used to?
I think so. I mean, I think that's a hopeful way to look at it. I think I think that's also the right way to look at it. You could see this as a decline of nearing a 60-year-old man that's losing his fastball and kind of on the decline of a program that he built up 20 years ago, or you could look at it as, like you said, a blip, a 1 year where everything went wrong and everything went right for every game they were playing against. They were in a lot of these games, a lot of these Big 12 games that they ended up losing. They were in them for at least a half for a lot of them. So now, they're able to reset, get new bodies pretty much at every position. They return a handful of starters across the board. And that's it. So a lot of newness, a lot of change. I think that's going to be, this season's crucial for both Mike Gundy and the program as a whole of proving that last year was just a blip, was just a, hiccup where everything went wrong. And it's not the sign of a starting of a deterioration of a program that, has been on the rise for, since Gundy took over as head coach back in 2005. So I tend to think it's that. I think it was just everything went wrong. I don't know if this year they're going to come out and win 15 games and, hoist the first national championship in 80 years. But no, but I think it was a blip, and they can get back to, making a bowl game and just continuing to surge on what Gundy's done for 20 years now.
Gotcha. And we'll get to, all those new faces that Oklahoma State's going to have this season on both sides of the ball. But I guess the most important piece of all of that is the quarterback position, a battle that's still going on. There's been reports one person's going to win and another person's going to win. Any news on who is going to win the quarterback job?
I think the fans are going to win. I think they're going to have a new quarterback, whether it's Haas Haney or Zane Flores. One of those two guys that have zero experience playing in an actual football game for Oklahoma State. Zane Flores is a redshirt freshman, hasn't played a snap, and then Haas Haney played a little bit, handing the ball off and running the ball last year as a true freshman at TCU. So two guys that have zero experience in games, but they, through practice, through spring games, and what we've seen, what we've heard, they are capable of leading a Division I football team. Will either of these guys be Heisman contenders or Big 12 Player of the Year contenders? I doubt it, but they're two guys that are capable of moving the ball down the field, capable of getting the ball to their receivers and running an offense. Now, what I think is going to happen, and is pretty confident what's going to happen these first couple of games, these non-conference games, we're going to see a lot of rotation. We're going to see both Zane and Haas play against UT Martin and against Oregon, and then potentially against Tulsa to round out non-conference play before winding on a decision, when Baylor comes to town at the end of September. Similar to what we saw a couple years ago. In 2023, we saw a 3-man rotation where all three guys, Alan Bowman, Garrett Rangel, and Gunnar Gundy, split reps through all 3 games. They went 2-1 in those games with the one loss to South Alabama, and before Bowman became the starter going at Iowa State. So I think we'll see a similar trend this year. This year's only 2 guys instead of 3. But it's going to be they're neck and neck. There's not one guy that's making super huge progress. Haas is a better runner. He's got that speed. Several of his teammates have called him, one of the fastest on the team. Zane Flores got a better arm, and he's got 4 or 5 inches on him. So he's got the height advantage, which is important in quarterback. So there's not a ton separating these two guys, but I think either option will yield better results than we've seen last year.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that was the thing. You said it, a couple years ago, they did the exact same thing, just trial by fire, and rotated 3 guys. I think it's a good approach, actually, when, people that don't have experience, the only way you get experience is by playing football, and you don't know. You can make a decision, and that's great. And a lot of times it does work out. But when you don't really know and then you have to make a decision, it's good to have these non-conference games. Now, obviously, one of those non-conference games is going to Oregon, which could be tough. But, trial by fire, man, it is what it is. You got to live. I mean, this is big-time college football. So, I guess you could say there's no easy outs from time to time, but there really isn't. You got to go out there and perform. So I like the approach.
I think it's crucial this year where you've got 3 different non-conference. You've got FCS opponent coming to Stillwater. You've got a rebuilding group of 5, in-state team that's going to give you a battle because they're in-state guys. And then you've got a top 10 team on the road. So I think 3 very different scenarios where, it's not like you're playing 3 group of 5 teams or 3, powerhouses. You're getting a little bit of everything to see what different defenses can do, different caliber of players you're going against. So I think they'll definitely learn about, especially this first 2 weeks, about what their quarterback room looks like, both on the road in Eugene and then at home in Stillwater.
Absolutely. So you mentioned new faces on both sides of the ball, lots of new players. Kind of give us and fans, who should the playmakers that people should be looking at? And it just the playmakers on both sides of the ball that people should be looking out for.
Well, what's our time limit here? We got there's 50-something guys, and none of us have seen them play in a game really. But no, there's some familiarity. One guy that stands out is Josh Ford. He was a true freshman tight end from Stillwater last year. Doug Meacham came in. They recruited 3 or 4 tight ends from the transfer portal, so that's definitely going to be used more than years past. Josh Ford, he's 6'6", put on a ton of muscle this offseason and just looks really good going into his sophomore year. I think he's a weapon both in the passing game and as a blocker. Trent Howland, a guy that they got 2 off seasons ago, and now in his second year of the program and running back. He's an Indiana transfer. He's a big bruising running back. I think he's going to get a lot of play. And then the receiver room is deep. I think they've got a lot of guys. Again, none of these guys have been here very long. Io Shadamai King is really the only returner that contributed a lot last year in 2024, but they've got guys like Terrell Davis, a kid from Central Oklahoma who had the most receiving yards across college football, regardless of division. He's now a Cowboy. Jalen Lloyd, a guy from Purdue or Nebraska. He's from Nebraska. They got two Big Ten receivers that Shamar Rigby, another guy that should produce well. So they've got a lot of speed, a lot of size on that side, and then on defense, their bread and butter is gonna be that middle linebacker, outside linebacker position. Guys like Malik Charles from West Georgia, guys like Brandon Rawls from Akron. So Brandon Rawls, another guy from Saginaw Valley State, and Brian McCoy from Akron, 2 guys that are just stereotypical, 225. Just if you think what a linebacker looks like, that's what they look like, and they're physical, get to the quarterback, get to the backfield, and stop the run. So they got a lot of pieces, a lot of experience. A lot of these guys are new to us, new to Oklahoma State, but they got 3, 4, 5 years of experience playing college football at different levels. Some of them at Power 5, some of them at FCS Division II. So there's a lot of experience, a lot of guys that have seen a lot of football. It's just, can they come together and play 12 games for the Cowboys? It's going to be the big question mark going into the season.
Right. I mean, this is what college football is right now, McLean. Oklahoma State, I guess they dipped their toe in a little bit in the transfer portal previously, but they're not this year. I mean, they dove headfirst into this thing. But they also have a double-edged sword where a lot of times where teams get transfers and they bring in a lot of transfers, the coaching staff is in place. But Oklahoma State, totally different coaching staff minus the head coach. So what were some of the challenges, if there has been any challenges, like you mentioned, about coming together, or are people just kind of used to this? It's like, look, man, this is college football now. We're here to win as many games, to be as good as we possibly can, because guys that are transferring aren't transferring because, well, I just want to see what I can do. Guys that are transferring are coming to play, and they're coming to play well. That's the whole thing about this. People just don't transfer so they can sit around and play, 10, 12 snaps a game. They're trying to come in and play as many snaps and as well as possible. So is that kind of a little bit different, even with the different coaching staff? I know it brings some challenges, but you're also getting more mature guys. Does that help out?
Yeah, and this coaching staff is expecting them to come and contribute. I mean, a lot of these guys that have transferred here are going to start. A lot of them are going to play serious reps from game 1 to game 12, game 13. So they're going to be guys that are contributing. They're, like you said, they're mature guys that have come from different schools, and I think that's really helped. Having that experience, the understanding what an offseason looks like at a college football program. A lot of these guys came here. Most of these guys did enroll in the winter, so they had all of spring to learn the playbook, learn about their teammates, learn about their coaches, and kind of go through spring ball. They did also hit the portal in the spring, so a lot of these guys got here in June and have had a shorter time to learn the playbook and learn what they're supposed to do. But they acclimated well on both sides of the ball. So yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely gonna be a hodgepodge of. It feels very much like a I don't know, like a pickup game, where you go out and you get 10 coaches and then you go out and get 50 players and you make a team off of that. That's kind of what this is. I mean, a lot of these guys have not played together. A lot of these coaches have not worked together or coached together. So, on that first game in a couple weeks against, UT Martin, I guess next week against UT Martin, it's going to be the first time a lot of these guys have worked together on the field, in the press box, what game day looks like. For each guy. So it's going to be a very, very big learning curve. And I think they're very fortunate that they're playing, a team that is on the lower end of an FCS program. They're not playing, last year they opened against South Dakota State, who was coming off of a national championship. So that might have been a very different beast this year with this regime and this how this program looks now versus a year ago. So I think they got a little fortunate there. But yeah, it's gonna be a learning curve these first couple of weeks. Because you can practice, you can scrimmage, you can do all you can to prepare for what a game day is going to look like. But the real thing is totally different. From the time you get to the locker room to get ready for put your pads on, go through your pregame warmups, and then then you go on the road across the country to Oregon. So I mean, there's a lot of learning that's going to be happening this first month of the season for sure.
Absolutely. McClain, you mentioned the schedule, and you take a look at it. You just take a kind of a dive into the schedule. Like you said, they open with UT Martin, they go to Oregon, and then host Tulsa. But you start getting into the Big 12 slate of this, and look, there's about 7 teams that people, depending on who you talk to, think can win the Big 12. And again, think can win the Big 12, because we saw exactly what happened last year on everybody who thought they could win, and it kind of got turned upside down. So you never really know. But having said that, of those 7, Oklahoma State plays 4 of those, but 3 of those are at home. And then you start looking at the rest of this schedule, McClain. I mean, look, again, they got a lot to overcome. They got a lot to get done. There's no doubt about that. But it's manageable. This is not a schedule where you think, okay, if they get the 6 wins, it's a miracle. I don't look at it that way. I think Oklahoma State has a chance. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win 8-9 games or anything like that. But if things go the right way, which I guess you could say that about anything, but you just really look at the schedule, this is not a daunting task of, oh, man, they won 7-8 games. I have no idea. No, you look at it, and they have an opportunity. Again, when you get those games at home, it just – and I know last year is an outlier. I totally understand. But you get some of these teams that are supposed to be good, but you get to play them at home. That changes things, McClain. I think Oklahoma State's got a chance here, and this schedule does them a little bit of favors.
I think returning to a bowl game is definitely in play. For 19 years they went to a bowl game. 19 years they had a winning season. And obviously that streak ended last year. But I think getting back to that standard is definitely in play. Like you said, Baylor, K-State, Iowa State all come to Stillwater at various points of the season. Obviously, Kansas State, Iowa State towards the end of the season. Both those teams might be playing for Big 12 championship aspirations, college football playoff aspirations. Then they've got Texas Tech on the road, Kansas on the road. Places that they've had success in. Oklahoma State hasn't lost. Lawrence, they lost a couple years ago, but that's a place they win a lot. And a lot of these games, I think they're very winnable. And as though Oklahoma State is definitely the standard of newness and uncertainty going into the first week of the season, a lot of these teams are in similar boats. Arizona's in similar boats. UCF, what's the new era of Scott Frost going to look like? Texas Tech, they've got a lot of players, they got a lot of pieces. Can they really make that jump? Last year, in Stillwater, Texas Tech and Oklahoma State was a shootout, and that was against a really bad Oklahoma State team who had little to no offense, but they found 40 plus points that night towards the end of the season. So I think the Big 12 is the most fun conference because nobody knows what the hell is going to happen. I mean, other than 2 years ago when Texas won, the preseason champion hadn't won in like 5 or 6 years or something like that. I mean, it's such a crapshoot of who's going to win. I think this year is no different, which makes for each week matters. So where in 2023 when Oklahoma State was looked at as they might win 6 or 7 games, they were playing in Dallas at the end of the season, so or Arlington. So anything can happen. I think Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy's a winner. Mike Gundy's a guy that has taken this team overperformed what the expectations have been. That's kind of been his MO. And then when they're expected to do well is when they crumble, like we saw last year, which, I don't know if it's ever crumbled that bad, but never again. But I think there's definitely 6 wins on this schedule if things go their way for sure.
Gotcha. Well, McClain, I want to thank you again for giving us your time, man. No, it's a hectic schedule right now with everything going on, but we appreciate you. Tell everybody where they can find you if they don't already know.
Yeah, so GoPokes.com is going to be the best coverage of Oklahoma State athletics, football, recruiting, men's, women's basketball, whatever you got, we got it. Message boards, everything. And then on Twitter, at McClain Baxley. I'm on there way too much, tweeting way too much, talking way too much, thinking people want to know what I got to say, but I say it anyway. So those are the two best places where I'm always at.
Gotcha. Appreciate it, McLean. Thank you for giving us your time. And thank everybody again out there. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to hit that notification bell so you know when Big 12 Insiders content comes out. Football season's right around the corner, people. We will talk to you soon.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.